love it.
Hey folks, welcome to the AI Chicks, where we're providing you cool conversations about AI for all. With each episode bringing you a different topic on how AI impacts your daily life.
Hey guys, it's your girl Lana Hout from the AI Chicks. Today we have a very special episode. It's a crossover episode with our good friend Cameron Brown of the Cameron Brown podcast. We discussed how AI is impacting different industries, and we think it's going to be a great conversation that you'll enjoy.
Also, speaking of which, I've said this on like the past three, but they really need to change the voice of the recording in progress on Zoom. Or give us options, because I've heard it now for the past 5 years. And not that it's that bad, but maybe some options would be helpful for their clients. Maybe.
Yeah.
So just to give us a start too, I really appreciate you all hopping on tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and let you kind of give the background on how you became maybe the AI Chicks, maybe a little bit of background on each of you. And then once again, how you came to discover or create the AI Chicks from there.
Well, I guess we'll start with each of our backgrounds, and then we can get into our AI Chicks meet cute story here. As you could say, I'm already using the phrase meet cute because I am an executive producer by trade and career. I've been executive producing in the entertainment industry and nonfiction, primarily on the feature, TV, and podcast side for over 10 years now. And in addition to that, I've always had a affinity and a gravitation towards tech. Even in college, I took computer programming courses, and I was always actually teetering between the tech space and the entertainment space, and really saw at an early time in my career the synergy between the two. And obviously digital technology has drastically changed content, video, and the entertainment space, streaming, the list goes on of how tech has evolved entertainment and content. So there's always been sort of this parallel dynamic between both worlds that I've always gravitated towards. So primarily my 9 to 5 is executive producing. I've done everything from movies, Emmy-nominated doc projects, to reality shows, to true crime podcasts, and just really, really enjoy telling amazing stories, featuring amazing groups, culture, societies in a captivating way that entertains and informs the public. So that will come full circle when we get to the AI Chicks. And then this is my bestie, Lana Hout.
Yeah, so we are actually best friends outside of the AI Chicks, which we'll get to in a second. But
so that's why there's such great energy and synergy here, right?
Yeah. We were just two strangers that they threw together. Like, we actually were friends before this. So
it's like, did y'all meet on LinkedIn? Like, how did you get
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, do you want to do this AI podcast? Sure. But honestly, we probably would have kicked it off right away anyway, if that's how we met. But we've known each other for over a decade. But so my background's actually very different from Aisha's. So I come from the business background. So my whole background has been in finance, business valuation, transaction advisory. My business is, I'm a business broker and M&A advisor. So I help clients sell businesses. And so I work with, companies in the small to medium size range, anywhere from, a $1 million business to like $50, $60 million business, for example, and industry agnostic. So I work with a lot of businesses, and my love for tech came through my love for business and wanting to incorporate more technology to streamline my own business and how I can make my life easier, right? Because any entrepreneur that you speak to, it's like, how are you marketing? How are you doing sales? How are you doing production? How are you doing all of these things? And I wanted to leverage technology to make my life easier. And I think that AI really coming to the forefront really was something that made me even more like excited about how I could take that new technology, this new emerging technology, and in the different ways that it's being used today, than it was like historically, right? So I think that was something that was exciting, and that really brings us to Aisha and I, because we were, I think, at your house.
Yeah, so we were separately, obviously we have our friendship, but we were also separately just geeking out over the evolution of the AI technology. And I am a bit more nerdier. So I'm like, learning about Python and taking like AI courses and doing all of that. And we just randomly on a fun rosé day, sort of best friend conversation, discovered that we both were separately incorporating more and more of AI research, AI information, and new tools in our world separately.
She's like doing the Python courses. I'm like looking at AI marketing tools and how I could content create and how I can do social media marketing. And I was looking at it more a little bit from like how I could help my business, but we were both getting fascinated, and it led into a year of us sending back and forth DMs about, do you see this new AI? Oh, do you see this new tech? Oh, look how they're using it in this industry. And we just did that for a long time.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. And basically every time we would also get together just as friends, we would hang out, but then literally have our own sidebars within our friends group about AI. And every time we got together, I was just like, this feels like a podcast, because we're just having our girlfriend Kiki
We're
over
geeking out over here.
Exactly. And because we've embraced over the years more and more of the AI tools coming out, I started going to some AI conferences and AI events, meeting more AI entrepreneurs and startups. She also was doing the same thing in her respective industry and career. And we were noticing some similarities of every time we went to these AI targeted or tech targeted events and workshops, it was a very heavy on the informational side for those who had already studied it and were already informed about it.
Right.
But for every average day person, we were noticing the communication gap. And so we realized, you know what, there's a audience and a communication barrier that we can feel if we join forces and just stay ourselves, but be the translators of the tech world and the AI world for the everyday person. And so I was just like, hey, it was sort of like the stars all aligned. The AI Chicks popped into my head. Everything for the AI Chicks was available on social media and the domain and everything else, and I was just like, this seems like the synergy's there to do it. And literally this podcast is now like explode into like this brand for us. We really tapped into all of our relationships. These were our everyday business and friendships that you're seeing throughout our podcast. I mean, we have of Google, we have celebrity music artists, we have top tier corporate VCs and corporate attorneys. And this was our circle anyway. So when they found out that we were going down this path of launching this AI Chicks podcast to be a relatable tech brand, everyone was like, can I be on it? Can I jump on it? Can I want to talk about, everything we're doing with AI and real estate. And so it took on this momentum in this life of its own. And just recently, we got selected to be a Webby honoree just after 2 months 2 to 3 months of releasing the podcast. So I think that just reiterated to us the quality of what we're doing, and that this type of information and relatability when it comes to artificial intelligence is needed.
And I think I just would want to add that, like, what Aisha was talking about was when we'd be attending a lot of these AI events, and we did see that kind of communication gap, but even kind of in my circle of like when I network with a lot of business owners as well as professionals, like whether they be attorneys, accountants, financial advisors, I noticed a common like language that was being spoken, which was either fear about AI or uncertainty about how they could use it. Yep. And I think that just was so surprising to me, because while it is a big topic of conversation on the headlines all the time, right? It's AI this and AI that. But the average person who doesn't come from a tech background, there's still so many questions about how to use it. Is it safe to use? When do I use it? And I think that was something that inspired us to have that conversation.
Yeah, the level of entry and sort of that gateway, we noticed that, we were really willing to dive in and study it and do all of it for years before we launched the AI Chicks. But we were noticing that the average person did feel very intimidated by jumping in. And so we wanted to, again, really just be entertaining and informative at the same time with the AI Chicks.
I love it. I'm like, interestingly, like I'm a mixture of both of you in the sense of I love like the marketing sales background side of things, but I also like to dabble. And I'm not a coder by any means, but I have like attempted to code and develop like tools by myself using other AI tools. And so I've kind of found myself in the middle of doing that. And about 8 months ago, I basically downloaded a bot onto my computer that then created other AI bots. And it scared me so much because it was working. It was literally working behind the scenes on my computer. And I was like, I don't really know what it's doing, frankly. I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. So I shut it down completely. And honestly, completely reset my computer at the time because I was like, I don't know what it just did to my computer, but it was acting on its own. And so for me, as the average individual, able to actually create something like that and have it, recreate other bots by itself, I was like, that's pretty scary, frankly, if you don't know what you're doing. But it's also super cool.
It's cool and scary.
I was like, what are you doing? I don't really know where you're going with this.
What are you like getting into? You're like,
you've taken my prompt and you've now created something. I was like, but I don't really know why you've gone down that rabbit hole because I didn't tell you to do that. That sort of kind of weird AGI of sorts. And I think that's kind of where we're obviously getting to with all this, right? Is there's a very interesting and helpful aspect of this, and it's very scary, very kind of interesting other arena of this. It's a gray area of sorts.
And that's exactly why, Cameron, just to add, like, that's exactly why, not only did we become enthusiasts that were using over hundreds of AI tools, but we actually studied it, like we took courses, we learned Python, like, because I'm the same way. It was like, I didn't want to start using something and not fully understand all of the details and the back end of it. I'm the type of person that I will literally produce a TV show and then like build a website for the show. So I'm definitely, that's the producer and the logistical, executor in me. So that same sensibility is what I basically transitioned over into the AI space of not only being someone that is a consumer and a user of AI, but then also wanting to study how it's the back end of it as well.
Right.
And I think too, like, I think that's a really good point because a lot of the times when people are talking about AI, a lot of the language is thrown around. NLP, okay, AGI, neural networks, machine learning. People are just throwing these words out.
You're like, stop the acronyms. I don't know. I have no idea what's
going on. The average person doesn't really know what that means. Exactly.
Right. And so like definitely like in taking the courses, really understanding what is AI and what's behind AI and like really understanding how it works. And then being able to be like, okay, now that I understand how it works, how is it being applied in these different situations? But I think the key that, you're talking about, it's like, what data is it starting to pull from, right? Like, and what parameters did you give it? Because it seems like, if it was going down a rabbit hole, that means we need to put enough safeguards in place. So I think that these are all the kinds of examples that are making people nervous, right? Because they're like, what's it doing? Is it doing it correctly? And are we basing our decisions, if we're using AI, on something that is fundamentally something we agree with? So I think these are really great questions that the community, all of us, not just in the tech community, need to discuss so that we are using AI in a responsible way.
Yeah, and then we do all the homework and the research, and we talk to all of the experts for the people, and then distill it down in like easy, relatable terms.
Yeah, bite size.
Love it. The layman's terms, which are perfect for so many people, especially in this space. And I kind of mentioned briefly in that email, I worked for an AI startup for 3.5 years. Going into it, we didn't make a single sale for 6 months. And frankly, it was because we were leading with the fact that we were an AI company 3.5 years. Well, it's technically 5 years ago now. It's 5 years ago when I started with them. But we were leading with the fact that we were an AI company. At the time, that scared everyone. They were like, What do you mean you're an AI company? What are you actually doing for us? And obviously from a sales perspective, that was more so selling on the features of the tool instead of selling on what it was actually solving, the problem it was solving for the individual. But we learned that lesson really, really quickly. And obviously AI now is a hot topic, but it was not so much.
Everybody wants an AI company.
Exactly. Everyone wants an AI company now. But that was a huge learning experience for us. And I learned, all about NLP and every bit of AI during that process. But then to kind of take it and, utilize AI and blockchain together with kind of another startup that we were working on as well. There's a lot of different ways you can use AI, right, across the board. So I guess this is kind of a follow-up question on the M&A side of things too. I'm very curious when you're talking to founders specifically. I did not include this one, by the way, in these questions. This is just one that's kind of top of mind. When you're talking to companies or talking about potentially acquiring a company, do you now have this like list of questions in your head just to be like, okay, this person is BSing us, or this person's actually legitimately understands what they're building on the back end?
You know what? I think that listen, every founder of any type of business, doesn't matter, put industry aside.
Yep.
They think that their company is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay.
And as they should, right? They gotta be
As
happy
they
about
should.
it.
I mean, they're putting their blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Yep.
So the conversations, believe it or not, they're always the same, which is they think their business is the most amazing thing, which it is. I'm, not trying to take away, but how a buyer is going to look at it is going to be analyzing all the not so great things about the company. So I think that when I'm speaking to a business owner, an entrepreneur, a founder, my conversation is about understanding like what they have accomplished today.
Yep.
Yes, we want to understand the potential, but people are going to buy the business based off of what they've accomplished today and the fact that there's opportunity for growth tomorrow. But they're not going to pay you for something that they have to come in and like build, right?
Yep.
Like that they're not going to pay you for that. So
Right.
for me, a lot of the times with technology today, especially because everybody wants AI and tech and software plays, really the companies that have a lot of value are the ones that have started to establish their own proprietary technology,
Right.
and that they're solving a problem and that they have reoccurring revenue. Right. So so you have to think about these different aspects of the business, but I would just say it doesn't really change so much for me as much as I will still ask the same types of questions, but I think founders need to understand that if anything, people are getting more sophisticated and the demands are getting higher. People are not going to spend the same amount of money they would have spent 10 years ago on a business or a technology platform without having some sort of proof of concept and some results shown.
Well, I guess you could argue too with like OpenAI releasing their own bots within OpenAI, right? I mean, a lot of companies were using that API to create their own platforms. And obviously a lot of those companies became obsolete once OpenAI did what they did. They brought it all internally, which was super cool for users of OpenAI.
Oh yeah,
like,
we all love it because it's like, oh yeah, well you're, starting to bot around.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I've got a podcast. Okay, I work for a construction and roofing company. Oh, okay, I do this or I do that. And it's like I want to travel. I need a travel agent. And I think all of that was super interesting to see how quickly a lot of those companies died off, right? Because of basically them bringing it internally. So this is kind of a follow-up to that to a certain degree. But in regards to the use cases of AI, there's a lot. What is maybe your favorite right now? And maybe it's respective of your industries that you're in, but what is your favorite usage of AI currently?
Why don't you go first? Oh, because you already have your favorite, so I'll let you. Okay, yeah, I do actually I have two favorites.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
how you know your best friends when she immediately knows what your favorite AI use case is.
I know. People are gonna think like, yes, we are nerdy. Okay, like we nerd out. Okay, like but we do it fun, right? We're fun nerds. Okay, only a nerd would say that, right? So, but really, I would say honestly, marketing is my favorite aspect of AI. Personally, that I use it for, whether it be content creation, email marketing campaigns, just like visuals, like presentations, all the different ways that I could save time. Because like you said, people are busy. Like most people today, especially with, the advent of social media and the internet, then social media, and now AI, everybody has multiple jobs, wears multiple hats. And so for me, I'm like, any way that I can do what I love to do, which is talking to people and helping them with their business, right? I want to help sell their business. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm excited and passionate about that. So I want to get rid of the stuff that takes a lot of time, right? And I think AI getting rid of those repetitive tasks is amazing. But I think that's what I like to use it for, is all that content creation, generation stuff. But I think something I'm always have such admiration for is in the healthcare space with the predictive analytics and the diagnostics and how people can do like personalized medicine. So I feel like if there's ways to be able to look at, let's say, a scan of some organ in your body and be able to pick up that there are precursors in there for some sort of health issue, and now we can, get in it, get in front of it, if you will.
Right.
I think that's really cool and a great way for us to just live healthier, longer lives. So those are some of the aspects that I really enjoy. But Aisha, what about you?
Yeah, so speaking, I'll just piggyback off of the predictive analysis that she was talking about in the healthcare space. I actually really love that same AI applications, but in the entertainment space. I think that the predictive analysis performance and data that now is accessible to everyday creatives and filmmakers is, really even the playing field of opportunities. Prior, studios were already always using these things, and there was a little bit of gatekeeping happening there.
Yeah.
And so now that the same sort of, AI tool that is used in helping in the medical space, when you look at it in, say, my respective industry in the entertainment space, is really opening up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities for global and international reach. Is opening funding, investment funding opportunities for filmmakers and independent creators, because they have that early predictive analysis, that is data being able to go out to these platforms, these distributors and investors, saying, hey, here's the data that is showing that my film, my podcast, my TV concept has strong potential, or has, the possibility to be very successful and bring that ROI. So that's something that I'm really enjoying, that I'm seeing, opportunities coming with the AI tools there. And then another thing that I really love on in the entertainment industry lens is what we call video indexing. So video indexing, for those that don't know, it basically is, importing all of your video data and using AI to help streamline searching for what you need in that video content. So obviously, for time purposes, and streamlining production, to have an AI tool that helps you get through all of that video data really quickly when you're editing or putting something together is just a crazy time saver, and also really, really helps with the communication between the director, the executives, the producers, and the editor. So there's, things like that I'm seeing are great improvements that we're seeing on the AI space. And that's respective to like my actual industry. One of the other things that I would highlight, though, is just across the board, is that I do love, you know, AI tools like a co-pilot, where just I end up using, we use ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, we use all of them, and all of them are great, but I do like ones that give you a source link. And so we end up doing a lot of research within our respective industries, as well as for the AI chicks, and just exploring and keeping up with the AI revolution that's happening right now, because AI tools are advancing and everything's happening so quickly, that to be able to have certain platforms that give you a source link, that prove that the information that they're giving you is vetted, and that AI isn't hallucinating on you, because we're in this stages where AI does tend to hallucinate, especially with the language models. So all of these things are things that, we're aware of and informed of. So when I see a tool that comes with a source link, that comes with some additional vetting outputs, I always love that as well, because then again, it makes my process easier.
I love it. I love it. Do you all, as it relates to like everything progressing so quickly, do you have like a fear of the progression of AI at all? Is there a thought in your mind? There's a lot of like clips on social media that will obviously play out the situation, this doomsday scenario that gets all the clicks and all the impressions, which I'm not a huge fan of, because frankly I feel like it's not good for society in general to feel like everything's a doomsday situation, but it's great for clicks. But is there a part of you that's kind of like, okay, as we think about, humans living alongside, the progression of technology and AI, that maybe scares you a little bit?
I mean, definitely, I will say, we are called the AI chicks, but that doesn't mean that we're like love everything about AI.
Yes.
We're really about getting informed, and whether that is a pro or a con, and then informing others. So you'll hear this throughout all of the topics that we touch on, whether it's AI in real estate, the music industry, accounting, healthcare. Like, we're always differentiating the
pros and the benefits of AI, and then where there are the concerns. And so I like to just give that disclaimer right up top, because we definitely have some concerns about AI in various ways, and it's affecting different parts of society and professions differently.
But I would say, like, I don't think, Aisha, I mean, you can jump in if you disagree. This is when you're best friends, you just start talking for each other. But
100%.
like, we're not the fear-based, we don't lead with fear. I think that's a fair thing to say.
We're about being informed.
We're about being informed, and we believe in trying. So I think a lot of the times with people who are afraid, I'm always curious to know how much they've tried using it. Because a lot of times people will, I'll be, talking to people and they will be like, I'm so afraid of it. And I'll be like, well, have you tried it? And they'll be like, no. I'm like, well, okay, maybe like, what we want to encourage, I think at the AI Chicks, is people being open to technology and innovation, and really being like open to how it's being incorporated into daily life and using it, right? But to Aisha's point, we're not just here like free for all, AI can do no wrong. Of course not. There's privacy concerns, there's biases that we have to deal with. And so for me, when I think about the problems with AI or the challenges with AI, I'm assuming that we as human beings are going to be proactive and are going to put things into place to manage this risk the way we have done with every technology or any other innovation, right? Like, there's always fears, but I think with technology, the whole like robot coming to life and Terminator style is usually what people are worried about. It's probably the only thing where, like, you're not necessarily worried about like the internet coming to life as you are like AI coming to life. Even though they're both, in the tech space. So I think for me, I would just say I don't really go into too much into the doomsday as much as I'm trying to be very open eyes. I don't like the rose-colored glasses. I think you need to see things for what they are. There are the advantages of the streamlining, productivity and doing the repetitive tasks, and maybe finding like diagnostics in a healthcare situation and saving someone's life is a potential. But then there is the side of, job loss and, discrimination that we also need to consider. So I feel like it's really important for the tech companies as well as society as a whole to put safeguards in place to make sure that there's checks and balances like there is in any other industry.
And just to add to that, Cameron, I think that there's stages, right? And I think that's what a lot of people are tending to overlook. We are still very much in the early stages of the AI era. And so because of that, there are things that aren't, operating as well as the public would like it to. But what we really learned, especially in our AI and law episode, is that the way that the regulations system works is that we need to use these products, we need to use these tools, determine what is hindering and what is working, and then the things that aren't working, that's when you create the laws and the regulations and the parameters around it. Some of this is just about society understanding the era of innovation, right? And so we're in such an innovative era right now that there's certain things that we just have, that the companies, startups have to release. Their users use it, and then you find the flaws, and then through those beta testing and all of that, you make the corrections and you put some regulations and laws in place. It's almost impossible for the early AI companies and inventors to know all of the errors that are going to happen, and we just create a whole perfect system before we even release it. So that's what I always like to think of. I want to just give your listeners sort of like my framework is there's some things that are just going to get rolled out that are going to have errors, that are going to have biases, that are going to have privacy issues, but the only way that they're going to discover those things is through user experience, and then putting the parameters around it. The other thing that I also want to touch on, because it is the big elephant in the room, is everyone is just concerned about job loss. They're like, what happens when AI takes all of our jobs and we have no money and we have no place to, that's the doomsday story, right? And I think that one of the things that is a little bit of the ugly truth is that there are going to be several types of careers that do not exist anymore. Right? That is the truth. However, through what we're seeing in the on the business and innovation side of this technology, as well as through the societal implementations of it, and even what's happening on the governmental standpoint with US and European regulations, we do not feel that it will be a scenario where, at least within like the next decade or so, where we're taken over by the robots. What we think is really going to happen is there's definitely going to be some careers that no longer exist, and then there's going to have to be some pivots. And it's actually, the same way as the industrial era. Like, there's jobs that existed then that do not exist now. And before, when we got into the digital era, there were businesses and companies and industries and subsets that existed that don't exist now. And now everyone, can have sort of their own immediate access through a cell phone or a laptop. So I think that when we look historically at how things have evolved with our society, there's definitely some things to be concerned about, but we also feel as though there's the ingenuity of humans that will know how to pivot and create new jobs and new businesses and new ways of living that can coexist with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, like we're pretty resilient.
Yeah.
A lot of people be acting like we're not. But we
this is kind of a breath of fresh air, frankly. Like, y'all are realists, it sounds like. You're both very much so realist. Is that correct? Awesome.
I think so. And not to cut you off, but to just piggyback off something she said earlier, I think people were very critical of AI when it came to the masses with like when OpenAI first launched its NLP, and let everybody, the chat GPT, and let everybody play with it. And people were getting upset that it was hallucinating. People were getting upset that it wasn't answering questions and maybe the way they wanted the question. But for us, it was like, it's a new technology. Like,
this is what new technology does.
Yeah, like
it beta test. It disrupts.
Yeah. And like maybe a chatbot starts making a chatbot, goes down a rabbit hole, makes 4 other chatbots, and you're like, what's happening? But like, that is what tech is. And I think it's just funny because so many people would get so like angry, and so many people would not even check the sources. Like when I was playing and I call it playing because I'm having a good time. So, but like when I'm playing,
I'm right there with you. We're just playing these tools.
Like, or if I'm on, if I'm on Copilot or I'm on Gemini and I ask all 3 of them the same question and I'm looking at the responses, I don't assume that what they're saying is necessarily correct or true. Like, to Aisha's point, like we still check the source link and make sure what was regurgitated is correct.
Right.
So I don't know why people kind of like take it as like law. Like it's always correct and it can never make a mistake.
I think the biggest thing is because, AI doesn't have any marketing, right? Like all these companies and the tech industry, they're just throwing the word around AI. And so you're literally leaving everyone in the world to interpret what that means. And I usually have to kind of burst the bubble for some people when I'm like, you've been using AI for like easily half a decade. And they're like, what are you talking about? And but especially when I have people that are like, I hate AI, it's gonna ruin the world. I'm like, do you have Netflix? Yeah, there's AI in there. I'm like, do you use Siri or your Android? Do you use Alexa? There's AI in that too. So
does your email complete the sentence?
Yeah, that's AI. Yeah, so it's like all of those things.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, but that's the difference is because that's marketing, right? Like speaking of you guys' love for marketing, like it wasn't being called AI. It was being called Siri, Alexa. It's called, Netflix suggestions, Spotify music suggestions.
Snapchat filter.
Yes, Snapchat filter. So it's called that. So this whole time, people weren't realizing that AI was they were using it and it's embedded in all of these different features that you've been using. And now that was just like the baby crawling to now, now you can start using other tools that allow you to run.
Yes.
But I think that's the big thing is AI as an industry doesn't have that marketing like a Nike or a Gatorade or a McDonald's where people understand that they've been using it and now here's some like all different applications of it.
Well, now they have the AI chicks.
Yeah, and Cameron.
You got the AI chicks. Absolutely.
They have this collective
but this is exactly why we didn't talk about it being AI at the time, because people were not didn't understand AI in general. And so I think it goes back to like kind of the marketing genius of a lot of these companies, though, to not name it as AI because they knew that it would freak people out at the time, because it's still in this post like transformer era of sorts. And so I kind of think about, AI in general and the impact it's had on like small businesses and businesses that you wouldn't think are using AI. But I went from an AI background into, I now work with a roofing and construction company. And it's been a very interesting transition because I've been pushing AI and new tools the entire time, to kind of advance us in the service-based industry. Not a space, frankly, that I consider myself ever getting back into, but I realized how much of an opportunity there was to implement tools like this into this sector and kind of see the growth happening. And frankly, I mean, we've grown very rapidly over the past 3 months in this company just from new systems being organized. And for prime example, when I first got started, I started pushing these new tools, sharing them with the teams that, hey, we need to start using ChatGPT for our contracts, for our emails, for our information to get it out to people. And it took about 2 or 3 weeks for the team to start using it internally. And now we use it every single day. And yesterday, I created a contract that we sent out same day, was signed same day, for something we've never done before. And we didn't have to go pay $1,200 to a lawyer to do it. And I mentioned that, and I've told people internally, I was like, I use ChatGPT on everything now. And they're like, well, then that saves you a lot of time. I'm like, yes, it saved me a lot of time. I really don't spend as much time on those things. I get to go actually out and speak with and develop real relationships and partnerships for the business instead of sitting there for 5 hours writing a contract that I'm frankly not capable of doing because I'm not a lawyer. I shouldn't be writing the contract. So it helps, it revises things, and we're now using it for contracts and for estimating and all the above, which is just insane for everybody that's now utilizing it. So that being said, there are so many different businesses that still are on the early stages of doing so and aren't even considering using it because they're like, hey, I don't really want to use it. It's like you need to use it.
That's going to separate the company. I mean, specifically to what you're talking about with your construction company, right? Like that's going to separate them from their competitors because if the people who choose to ignore AI or put it in a box and just be like, I don't, or on the shelf and be like, I don't want to deal with it. Honestly, they're going to be left behind because AI is something that gives such a competitive advantage in being able to get rid of repetitive tasks and be able to move fast, right? Like, look, if you're able to do something that would take you 5 hours in 10 minutes.
5 minutes?
Or 5 minutes. I assumed you read it a few times and made some corrections. Okay. Like I was giving you I was trying to help you out. But he's like, okay, 30 seconds.
It might have been 45 seconds.
Okay. All right. He's just like, taking chat's word for it. But what I'm just saying, like, if that's the time save, then those companies, and I think that's something that I really am so passionate about because I love the entrepreneurial space. Is just that like, you don't have to be a tech company to be using AI. You could be a roofing company. You could be a PR company. You could be a restaurant. Like you need to figure out ways to like really like streamline processes. So I think that's awesome. But it's also interesting to hear that when you were trying to incorporate it, that you felt like that incorporation took a few weeks. Like it wasn't this everyone's just clamoring to jump on. And I think that we're as a society, there's the people who are jumping in the deep end like us. And there's people who are like,
there's the first responders and then there's the late adopters.
Yeah. Well, and I think people just in general, people don't like change. Right. Yeah. And I think that's one of those things I'm realizing. I love change. I love new things. It's like all the above. And that's just how I've always been. But that's not everybody's personality. So for the people that don't love change, they're hitting a brick wall hard with AI.
Yeah. And one of the things to just also highlight is some of these tools that that business owners and companies are used to using, they're just going to start seeing those tools and softwares implement new features. And then those features are going to be AI backed anyways, right? So if you're a company that is used to using this standard industry accounting software, all of a sudden that accounting software business is going to start to be rolling out AI features. And then that's the thing that we're also noticing is because we have a platform that we're speaking to people in every single industry from, entertainment to real estate to medical. And so we're seeing that some of these things are slowly being rolled out, even if they're not diving first, head first, like you are and like us, but it is inevitable. And I think that's the thing that we always try to highlight to people is there is the opting out, but if you completely opt out, you're going to be like that person that still has the flip phone and everyone's like, what are you doing? So
now you have a pin. Now it's coming down to we don't even
now
have
there's
phones.
always wearables.
For the record, I'm not a fan of the wearables at all. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm still not there yet.
But that's what I'm saying. It's just like, just how everyone looks at someone and they're like, oh, you still have a flip phone or you still have a BlackBerry, and like what, and that device has advanced so much. And so the same thing's going to happen for businesses, for operational and back-end support, is you can stay using the old thing, but these softwares and these platforms are going to get upgraded, and eventually everything is going to have AI implemented in some way, shape, or form. But the companies that adopt it more throughout all of their divisions and departments, they're definitely going to stand out above the rest because they're going to get things done faster. And I just wanted to highlight, we have this phrase that we call the AI-ations.
Right.
Yeah, you should know about this. We have the AI-ations, and there's a lot of AI-ations, but the four that we hyper focus on the most is
your favorite. Let's start with your favorite.
Automation.
Yes. Optimization, monetization,
and creation.
Yes.
But there's other ones as well, which everyone's fearful of elimination, so there's all of these Asians that we've tapped into that we're noticing can affect individuals' careers, lifestyle, as well as companies. And so there definitely are ways that professionals and businesses can optimize, do the optimization, the monetization, and the automation for their business to really stand up above the rest who are not adopting AI right now.
Yeah. And I think really, to point earlier is like creation is the one I think with AI most people are familiar with because of Gemini and ChatGPT, like, oh, I can just give it a prompt and it's gonna, answer me back. I think that's people's first taste into AI. But once you start working with AI, just like to her point, just the ability to video edit, to streamline things, to even have it like read an email and be like, you know what, is this sounding, professional enough, or actually I want it to sound a little bit more casual. Like, I think that's what's really cool because you don't have to be a trained, journalist or writer to come up with a nice piece of work that you can send to somebody to
I don't think
communicate.
people realize it's like you can just have AI listen on your team in meetings, and then it will create tasks and schedules. It will outline things for you just to give you a heads up. It's not maybe doing everything, but it does remove some of the minutia that you have to do or that your assistant has to do. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of your assistant. It just means that your assistant can just be more productive. So things like that is all the things that we're paying attention to and sharing with people.
So I definitely have a Fireflies account, and it still pops up and connects to my Zoom every single time. And I did not delete it, but I'm definitely not paying for it anymore. But it still shows up every single time. And so when it first kind of came out, we were using it for recording our sales calls, and then taking that information, dissecting it, and reviewing it as a team, which was great. But the first week or two, I basically said I'm not using it. I was like, I'm the top sales rep here. You're not gonna be using AI to listen in on my sales calls. That's how I felt about it initially. And then after a little while, I was like, I get it now. I understand. But I think we all have to kind of come to this realization too, for like wearables or whatever else it is. Our phones listen to us on a daily basis, right? It's consuming all of our information regardless. So
listen, it's
is
no
it
mistake
really
that
a
if
big
you
deal?
say you wanted a new TV and then all of a sudden all the ads on your phone are for new TVs, that's not a coincidence.
That's what I was saying earlier, Cameron. They've been just crawling us there. All of these features have slowly been there in our society for at least definitely for the past 5 years, potentially for the past 10 years. And so all of these features were slowly rolling out in different, variables in different ways. And now it's just going to be like, on steroids, if you will, with
So should we all just get a Neuralink at this point? Is that the plan? Are we down? I've been like,
that might be,
Are people going to have like Neuralink parties? Like, we're all going to go Neuralink in today.
Look, they can test it out a little bit more.
And going back to your Firefly and people wanting to understand if they should be, talking about confidential material over some of these note takers and other AI tools. Some of them, if you read the fine print, that's one of the things. A lot of people don't tend to read the fine print of these softwares and platforms that they use. But some of them do say, like, we do not ingest your information into our major, database. So some of them say that.
Karen's like,
I'm not saying that that's true, but I'm just saying some of them do acknowledge that they do not do that. And some of them, just leave it to the imagination. They don't say if they are or not. But there are some of the more newer AI tools that are acknowledging people's concerns, and they're making it a point to say, we do not, incorporate this information into our general database. The other thing that some of them are using is that you can opt out of certain features. So if you don't go in and opt out certain things, then yes, it is collecting all of your information for their general database. But there are others that you can filter, just how you can do with cookies, right? Like, you can accept all cookies, or you can go in. It's a pain in the butt, but you can go in and change the cookie access of every website you go to, right? So it's that sort of dynamic that's happening with AI right now. And then maybe we'll be able to get around it in the future, but as of right now, that's where it's at.
Maybe this is already a business. Maybe somebody's already doing this, but just to that point about opting out of things, there really should be somebody that creates a tool that allows us to opt out of everything very simply for every single app. It should allow me to just add one more thing to my phone and then say, do you want to opt out of these certain items? And say yes.
And then do it across all
apps and all
and I
devices.
think that's awesome. And
unless if that's already created, that's great. I want it. But so.
Well, and if it's not, then make sure to trademark and patent that.
It's already out. I love putting ideas out there. If somebody takes it and runs with it, it's great. It's better for the world. It's better for the world. So
it is. I mean, that's a great idea, but I think but you know what? You only discover, I think something that Aisha and I talk about often is because we test out all these different AIs, these AI tools, like we started to see like where the holes are. Because a lot of the times, like, for example, in this conversation, you're bringing up, like, why is there not this one thing that we all sign in and we just opt out of whatever we don't want, and then we just do it once and we're done? Wouldn't that make life easier, right? And so, but it's only in having these conversations and in, working with different models, do you start to see the problems or issues that could be solved. And like one thing, even on the content creation side, I was like, man, there isn't really like a very good, or I haven't really experienced yet a very good AI that does all the things that I want it to do. What it will do is like A, B, C, D. But then I get to D, and then I gotta go
into a new
app, and then that app does E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J.
Opus clips, and then you're taking Opus clips, and you're like, okay, then if I really want it to go viral, do I have to go to TikTok to add the sound to it? Like, what's the best way to go?
Exactly. And the reason why I'm saying that is like people don't realize it's like, while it is saving us a lot of time, there's still are opportunities for more, I think, streamlined solutions.
There's still some disconnect in some of the tools for sure.
So we have, I'm gonna say like 10 minutes left, if that's all right with y'all. It's like
no worries, we're
okay,
good.
Cool. There's the ethical piece of this that I really want to hit home on. I know it's one of the questions I sent over. Not really that I'm going to go down that road, because I'm going to bring up a situation that somebody actually brought up to me on a recent podcast. She's a professor of education at a local college here in South Carolina. We talked a lot about the usage of AI in education, and she was huge on students being able to utilize AI on a daily basis, because frankly, it's progressing so quick. And she's like, well, they're going to be using it regardless. Why not allow them to use it and get used to using it? Maybe make certain things more difficult, but make sure they're using it to get to produce their work. She also brought up a situation where there's a paper towel dispenser that somebody had created that utilized AI to basically make sure that whenever you swiped over it, it would dispense the paper towel. But there was a situation where an individual of a certain skin tone swiped their hand and it would not give them a paper towel. And so she told me that this was like last week, and I immediately was like, wow, I didn't even consider a situation like that, where AI could ultimately be that biased to where it would not produce a paper towel for a certain individual. So situations like that, I think we have to be very, wary of and careful of as a society. And y'all mentioned it earlier, in my opinion too, like problems are going to happen. and we can obviously create laws around them and safeguards as they come along. I'm not a huge fan of like a bunch of new laws, frankly. I feel like we might over-regulate, which at the end of the day would get rid of the, you know, the entrepreneurial side of things and the
innovation.
production, the innovation of new tools. But there's got to be something to be discussed on like the biases and the ethical side of things, where I feel like we kind of throw this bias word out all the time now. It's like everything's biased this or biased that, but it is so true. There is this bias built into every model that AI is learning from. So
I'm happy to touch on that. One of the things is that our society has biases, and we've gone to several AI conferences and panels. We've talked to many AI, startups and CEOs and engineers that really have highlighted that they're pulling from, they're programming and they're building all of this from a database of information. So if that database of information is inherently biased, then their tool is automatically going to be biased as well. And so the foundation, unfortunately, it's just the fact of the matter is the database that these tools are inherently being built off of is already biased, right? So it's not like they're creating and producing a biased tool. The data that is founded on is already biased. And so what then requires is that there has to be additional focus around mitigating those biases. And part of that is actually using it to see where the biases are.
Right.
That is, just a inherent factor of the way that this technology is built and works on. However, I will say that, not to get too political, but I think that one of the dynamics of why this is also happening is because within the tech space, there's not a lot of outside voices to, there a lot of, we know a lot of companies where, it's a lot of males who are launching these companies. So then if you find a bias that has to do with gender or sexuality or something like that, like there's not other voices in there to say, hey, by the way, they don't know it until a female uses it. They don't know it until someone of color uses it. I mean, even the factor of Snapchat was dealing with this with filters back in the day, when people of color would use the filters, it wasn't picking up certain things. And that also was related to the camera phones and the retinas and the system and the devices in that way. So, but if the people building the filters are not of various colors, some of them won't even think, some of it is like an unconscious prejudiceness where they're not even realizing, oh, hey, but these shades and cues of melanin get picked up by this filter, right? So there's certain things like that, is that I think that on the tech industry side and in the AI industry, if they were more taking more of an initiative to have additional focus groups or have more people as advisors and on the consulting side, working with them, I think that they would be surprised of how new voices would catch certain things that maybe they wouldn't normally catch.
Yeah, and I think that has to do, in your example too, with the paper towel in the hand. It's like, for it to understand that when a hand, goes over the device to dispense a paper towel, it was based off of training data of what, like different hands, like that we have to understand what the training data was of. So it was the same, it was 5 people and it just learned, and if they were all like, fair skin of different, even if they're different varieties of fair skin, but there was not anybody in that data set that, let's say, was of a darker pigment, then obviously the computer doesn't understand. It's like when you show, example, it's like if I upload a bunch of pictures of cats into an algorithm and then show it a picture of a dog, it's not going to understand what that is, because it's like, what is this? So I think that that's something that is really important for everyone to understand, is like AI is only as good as its data. So if the data isn't both diverse in like having like lots of different types, so like in the issue of like skin color, having all the different types of skin color ranges, right? But then also you need to have like depth. There needs to be multiple examples of each, color palette, if you will.
That's the only way the computer's going to learn. But if it's only based off of 2 colors, then you can't be mad when you introduce a third color and it doesn't understand.
And that's why I was saying that's why I think there is the responsibility for the tech industry to have these committees, have certain committees, do partnerships with certain nonprofit, multicultural organizations, things like that, where you get some other insights. Because I guarantee you, if they had that type of dynamic, one of us would have been like, hey, like, can I do this? But again, if you're not in that dynamic just as a person, you're not going to naturally think about those things. That's what I'm saying. I think some of it is too just accidental, subconscious biases and prejudices that they're not. That's not even coming up in conversation sometimes until it's in use.
But you know what? Even accents, like
that was a big one. With accents and voice recognition with AI. Yes,
they probably didn't have any Southern people helping them out.
No, but exactly. No, that was a big. There was a big So like, one of the AI companies ended up doing a partnership with Howard or HBCU to start embedding and training on what they were calling, Black voices or whatever. But that's what I'm saying. It's like they're now doing it, but they're doing it in hindsight when an issue comes up. What I'm speaking of is like, hey, tech companies, hey, my friends that have, hey, my friends that are the CEOs and heads of AI companies, like start, if you don't have certain voices already in your company and your infrastructure, form committees, do some strategic partnerships, and start to use those people as advisors and sounding boards for the tools that you're rolling out.
And there's a couple parts of that too. So I think the vast majority of it, in my opinion, is not malicious either. I think it's a lot of people innovating. Right. Innovating early on. They're moving fast. They don't really think about these things. They're building a tool. Like, this works super cool. We don't have the funding to pay for this yet, but we're going to do it anyways. And so I think a lot of people oftentimes see this as, oh, this is super malicious. These are terrible people, these tech company owners. And I'm over here being like, okay, I saw it happen. From the beginning to the end of the company I worked with. You're just moving super fast, and there's certain things you don't really think about. And unfortunately, that does occur from time to time, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're a terrible person, right?
Exactly, or that the product's terrible, and we're seeing
the product's terrible.
Yeah,
it's
we're seeing the same thing. Like we'll go to these like exclusive, not to sound too much like the It Girls, but we get invited to these like exclusive AI dinners, and we're having these conversations with some really top people in the industry, and we're bringing up things that they haven't even thought about. And I'm talking about these are like veteran engineers and programmers.
Like, oh, that's a good idea.
And we look like Dixie girls. We're like, well, does it do this? Like, is it there? And they're just like, wait, we never thought about that. I'm like, you guys have to have other types of voices, because what you're creating is for public consumption.
Right.
And so have other voices in the rooms to really, elevate what you guys are building.
But to your point too, Cameron, is just like, when you think, for example, like if you use AI for like job selection, right? And let's say you're thinking about a doctor, you're using AI to find a doctor. If that data is based off of history, where all the doctors were male, for a long period of history that, women were not, didn't get to be doctors, then you can't be surprised if the AI using that historical data keeps wanting to hire a male doctor, right? So then it becomes okay, wait a minute, we need to pick data that includes males and females and with different specialties and different whatever like the list may be. But that's something I think people forget is that like if the historical information was already skewed, no surprise that the output's going to be a little skewed.
But it's still a super cool tool, and they're on the right path. They just need to micro adjust.
And again, and not that we're trying to give them a pass for overlooking these things, but I'm just saying is that for me, it's happened enough in the industry now. Like we've been catching, ethic issues and bias issues and privacy issues for a while now. And so I'm at the point of like, I just feel that the industry also needs to start putting some new dynamics in play to get ahead of it, now that how the standards have been happening with new projects.
100% agree. I'm curious on the M&A side real quick, as it relates to the purchasing of businesses for people that are interested in acquiring new businesses and maybe wanting to comb through a bunch of data very rapidly to get to the right business for them. That was actually where I was at for the past 2.5 years. I put bids in on multiple businesses. I was planning on hopefully going down that road. That's really what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, none of those ended up coming to fruition. Maybe at some point in the future, but there's got to be plenty of tools now that you're using on that side of things to acquire new businesses to help people that are looking to purchase those businesses. So what do you maybe use?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the times, like, I think there's the intangibles that no one wants to focus on because, like, yes, there's a lot of databases that you could get access to where you would have the purchase or the asking price of the business, the industry, where it's located, right? But a lot of the times why people do not buy a business comes down to is there a key man risk issue? Like, oh, that's not going to be something that on any, open data set is going to tell you. If the financials are poor, that's not going to be revealed there. So I'm kind of giving these examples or is there high customer concentration? Maybe 50% of their customers is one person. That's or one company, right? That's a problem. So a lot of the times, I mean, just so you know, only about 20% of businesses that go to market actually sell. So it's not a high number. And some of these reasons that I'm mentioning, key man risk, poor financials, customer concentration, some of them are the reasons why they're not selling. Also, the seller's price might be a little too high because they love their company and don't want to give it away. So so there's that balance. So yes, I think there's going to be more and more tools that come out in the AI centric space where it's going to be able to comb through maybe a bunch of listings, for example, a bunch of businesses for sale, and be able to bring to a buyer like, here's the top 10. And that will help save time, but it still is not, because of the confidential nature of any sale, you're still going to have to, sign the NDAs, review the packages, and decide if it's the right fit. And quite frankly, when you're making a business purchase, more so than maybe any other type of purchase, I think there's so many variables because you have employees, you have, how it's from what the marketing situation is, what operations is, what productions is. So you can't, it's very hard to just put numbers on a spreadsheet and just be like, have it tell the entire story.
And this is really reflective of like our real estate episode as well. There's a lot of real estate tools that are helping realtors streamline and tailor listings for their clients. And they were just saying, even with that though, like there's still that personal dynamic in there where like some buyers just want to know who's buying their house and if they're going to raise their family in it and things like that. And so it's like at some level, there is the humanity there with how we are how we are doing business in different industries. So it's like you can use the AI tools up to a point to streamline the best offer. Does that area have great schooling? All of those types of things. The seller can use the AI tool to vet what's the best offer and things like that. But then at the end of the day, there are those human elements that still come into play that we've been learning as we have different conversations with experts.
And I think too, like just from the M&A side, I just want to say, like, I think deals are so specific to so many different variables in each deal that while I believe like I could probably create a couple AI tools to like streamline doing deals, there's still so much that's a judgment call. Right? Like, and I'll tell you, I've had deals happen because the buyer and seller liked each other. And because they liked each other, they agreed to terms with each other that would never fly if they hated each other. Okay. And I'm just saying, but see, that's something is like, that's emotional intelligence. That is the humanity just came into it. But there's some deals where there's like, it's strictly business. They don't like each other or dislike each other. And they're going to want to follow things, whatever is industry standard or is normal, in transactions, they're going to want to follow that. And I've also seen deals that have just been complete creative structures because both parties had different motivations on why they wanted to get the deal done. So, Cameron, I feel bad. I feel like, you might have wanted me to tell you this really cool AI M&A tool.
I was like, give us some tools.
I haven't come across any tool that I would stamp and say like that I would promote. But yeah, always happy to have sidebar conversations with you. Cool. But it's really, I think it's really great that we can use this technology. But in something like M&A, I still think you need sometimes traditional old fashioned, having the parties meet and go over the numbers is the way to go.
It's a hybrid. Like honestly, there could be a better MA tool that Lana and you, Cameron, can create. But
let's go get that money.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that we're seeing across the board. There's certain industries where there is a big human factor, an emotional intelligence factor to decision making.
I love it. On the Asia, on the production and the film industry side of things, maybe this is kind of a question for both of you, but I'm just going to maybe push it towards Asia for now. As it relates to AI being used in like CGI and not using actors or actresses as much, is there a big fear, y'all? I mean, considering where you are, is there a big fear that you feel in the space from AI taking actors and actresses' jobs and roles in that regard in the very near future or now?
Yes, I mean, definitely that was one of the major factors for all the strikes that were happening. The concerns in our industry are still there. And they have started putting some, safeguards and parameters around it. I think that several companies are starting to do partnerships with with image and life and likeness protection. So there are already A-list actors who are partnering with AI companies and copywriting and scanning in their likeness, making sure that they're already protected and finding ways to monetize off of that in the appropriate way when their likeness is being used with AI. I think that in general, if there was a way to find the appropriate monetization around it, I think more actors and talent would be more receptive to it. I think right now the concern is you're using my likeness, you're taking my creative ideas, and then I'm being shut out of the upside. So if greed wasn't in there, I think that we could find a happy medium. And same thing, it's also the same thing is affecting the music industry. Artists are concerned that the record labels or that other producers and other just everyday people can take the likeness of their voice, make a hit or make something viral and monetize off of it. And that's using, their creative and personal likeness. So if there's some ways to start safeguarding that, I think that the fear would minimize a bit less on that. And what people are also doing now on the AI side is they are also starting to note when things are made with AI. There are watermarks happening. There are serial numbers happening. There are copyright information that's being tagged onto the outputs now. So I think that as that starts to roll out, where you can trace the origin of things, that will also help the current fear and concerns that we're having right now. But it's very, very prevalent in the entertainment industry. I personally, have concerns about it. But again, the realistic tech side of me understand that I think this is unfortunately, sort of like the dance that we have to do with tech to get it to a point where it does work within the industry parameters and people don't feel like they're completely being taken advantage of. And then obviously protecting people from deep fakes. I think the deep fake issue is the stronger concern here outside of just you did a
commercial and now they're taking your likeness to do 5 more commercials. In that scenario, I feel like, and I think part of it is to Aisha's point, it's the permission aspect and then the compensation aspect, right? Making sure that person said, okay, I'll come in for one, for the first one, and then you can use my likeness for the next 3, but this is what I'm agreeing you to use my likeness for. This is what I'm agreeing for you to say. This is how much you're going to pay me for using my likeness. I think there's that side of it, but I'm actually more worried about the deep fake of someone taking your likeness and then having you say something completely ethically or morally against what you would stand for.
Right now, there are, AI tools like Emo where you can just
embed a picture, you can upload a picture, and that picture can then turn into video, and you can have that image now sing or say whatever it is that you wanted to sing or say. And so I think that like this is where, the tech side of me is like, that's a really dope feature, right? But and that could streamline a lot of things in the content creation space. But then the creative in me is like, that's concerning, because then just from a picture, you can make anyone say or do anything. And so I think that's where these tools, if you're uploading an image, if you're like, there has to be certain I keep using the word safeguards because that's like kind of like the industry's favorite word, but there has to be some safeguards in place of, if you're uploading something, what is the source of that image, and not just, versus something that is been generative AI. Like if AI creates an image of an avatar or a new, image of an animal, and then you use that image into emo and you make that animal rap or sing like Beyonce, right? Like that's very different than if you're grabbing someone's likeness off of Google Images and then embedding that. So I think also too, it's going to change a lot of features and protection around how easy is it to screen grab or just pull an image off of Google Images or Getty's Images, things like that. Like I think it's affecting a lot of different factors
and different laws.
Yeah, and different laws and protective. But I have already seen some companies starting to mitigate those risks by including serial numbers, source information, and adding limitations to their platforms.
My mind immediately goes to misinformation in political campaigns. And I know obviously we're going to be running into a very interesting end of the year. And I'm just curious to see how often deep fakes are used and whether or not we'll know if they're even, deep fakes at the end of the day.
There are AI tools that can catch these things, right? So it's interesting. It's like, that's when we get into the AI wars, right? Like there's an AI tool that can create these deep fakes, and then there's AI tools that can actually monitor the deep fakes and pull them off. It's the same thing with you mentioned like education, right? Like there are deep fakes there are AI tools that can help you write essays and papers, and then there are AI tools that search for plagiarism. So that's what's gonna, I think, end up gonna happen, where a lot of these media platforms and a lot of these news publications and reporters and things of that nature, we're gonna have to, and even social media platforms are gonna have to start sourcing and using AI tools that look for deep fakes and do a deep clean of their platforms to help mitigate that.
I think at this point in the podcast, it's very clear that this conversation could go on for 5 hours, maybe 10. Considering you all let me know that you had an event to get to, I do not want to hold you much longer.
No worries.
But first, two final questions. First one is, when are you coming to Charleston, South Carolina for the second episode?
Oh my God, we need to put it on the books.
Tomorrow.
When is a good time? I've been to Charleston before, but it's been a long time. When's a good time to come to Charleston?
So the next few months are super hot, right? So September, October gets better. Frankly, October-ish is probably that. October, November is much better. It's cooling down a little bit, but it depends on what you're looking for. If you really want the beach and you're okay with 100% humidity and 92 degrees, come next week. But if you are looking for more of a relaxation, like the air feels great, October, November is a little bit better. September, October, November, that time period. And also there's once again, the beginning of the year too. So February, March, also great. But they're all great times to come regardless.
Amazing.
Would love to have you.
Can't wait. Would love to come.
And then in conclusion with the AI chicks, how would you like to conclude this? What kind of information would you like to share with people? So if they are listening to the very end of this, they know where to find you, they know more about you, and obviously how to maybe get in touch.
Sure. So we're the AI Chicks, and you can find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
At the AI Chicks.
LinkedIn, at the AI Chicks. And our episodes drop every Tuesday.
Yeah, we're currently taking a little bit of a hiatus to regroup on some fun new things that we're bringing out. But
For season 2.
Yeah, for season 2.
Cool.
But and off of the heels of our Webby honoree selection that we're super honored for to receive. But yeah, we are regrouping for Amazing Season 2, and then you can also catch more of I think it's like 18 episodes we've already done on different topics at theaichicks.com.
Love it. Well, go check them out, AI Chicks. They're super cool, and I really appreciate you all joining me for today's episode of The Cameron Brown Show.
Thank you, Cameron.
Listen to the AI Chicks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Video episodes are available on Patreon. And check out our socials at the AI Chicks.